Hello, my name is John Sebesta, and if you looked at some of my previous videos, I mentioned that I did see a apocalypse type of vision. Well, I was standing on a chair and pointing out to a group of about 30 people, saying that the apocalypse is upon us. I know very well that the rapture is going to happen very, very soon. I just wish I knew what date it was, but we guess we will never know. When it happens, it happens. Now, the one thing I do want to stress, though, is when I was in that vision, I saw droplets of water, which means that there's going to probably be some kind of rain. My guess is there's an earthquake and then a tsunami, because I had visions of both. The earthquake I had when I was in Tennessee, I was living in a condo because I owned some land down there. And in the condo that one night, I actually felt my body vibrate. And I saw the windows bowed out. And I knew that there was an earthquake going on, but of course it was just a vision. It didn't really happen that day. As I actually spoke to my wife the following morning and told her a little bit of what occurred that night. And then it was, and I just kept it in the back of my mind that it occurred. I knew something was going to happen sometime. And then it was just a few months later, I had a dream of a tsunami, probably more on the East Coast, I believe. I'm not certain of that, but I remember just going up the mountains, and there were buildings on one side of the mountain, and I was going up on it and looking back, and the water kept rising and rising. I knew it was some kind of a great flood that was going to occur. So I'm guessing that's probably all connected with my apocalypse dream. But I do want to stress the fact that I know for sure that there will be a pre-tribulation rapture. Uh, all the way through the Bible, God has always taken the righteous people out. Even as early, if you go read back some of the verses, I guess the one I liked the best was Abraham. When Abraham kept telling the angels, and I guess one of the angels could have been Jesus himself, was that would you destroy Sodom if he found 50 people? And then he kept reducing that, and they kept saying no, we wouldn't do it, and got it down to like I think 10. And so he knew then that God really cares about the righteous. He's not going to have the righteous people go through the tribulation. So anyone who thinks that is absolutely nonsense. As if it's like that all the way through the Bible. He always cared about the righteous. And we do have the church, and I know the church is definitely going to be taken out before the tribulation. It just cannot happen. The church would never go through the tribulation. Matter of fact, we will never see the Antichrist. The Antichrist won't be revealed. I mean, we might have ideas of who he is, but he really won't be revealed until the church is out. I do want to say a little bit about my testimonial, because some people should hear that, because it does give credibility to everything I'm saying. All through my life, Jesus has been with me all through my life. I was born very ill, very sick. It was only because of my mother that kept me alive. The doctors had given up on me, and my mother kept force feeding me until I was able to be somewhat able to eat on my own. But it was a very difficult time. I had a comprehension of zero. I was a child and treated as a child for actually several years, and my dad thought I would never become like my brothers and sisters. I would have never the mentality that they have. They all graduated so very high in honors and so forth throughout the schools, throughout the years, and my comprehension was very low for many years, but it did increase. And actually, I made it to college. I got into Duquesne University, made it there, and with only because of my dad's help. But in my third year, there was something that occurred in my mind. I could actually feel my mind vibrating within my skull. It's pretty rough to explain, but I felt that happen for about maybe a few seconds. Didn't happen long, but I felt that my life was going to be over. But it was shortly after that I realized my comprehension had improved. That was probably one of the very first miracles I'd really realized that something had occurred in my body. But there were others. That was just the beginning. There was one time when I was working for a rental company, and we were delivering some plates and dishes and so forth. And we drove up a winding driveway. It was me and another fellow. I believe his name was Dave Leba. Dave was a driver, and he drove the truck up this driveway. We were dropping off some dishes and plates, and we went in the house and said, well, the dishes and plates are here, and they said, okay, put them in the backyard or whatever, and we went back to the truck, and the truck wasn't there. It wasn't on the driveway. I immediately asked Dave, where did the truck go? Did someone steal the truck? And Dave knew right away that the brakes had let go. And this was a wealthy neighborhood. These were all very big homes, big driveways, and this one happened to be a winding driveway. So we followed the driveway down, and we didn't see any damage. There wasn't any damage in the walls anywhere in the lawn. And we kept going down. That must have been probably a good 100 yards, or maybe 100 feet. I don't know, but it was a good distance anyway. And as we walked down the end of the driveway, I saw the truck on my right-hand side up an embankment, and it had been stopped by I believe it was a telephone pole. It was up against a telephone pole, but it didn't cause any damage to the truck. If it was minimal. It didn't cause any damage to the neighborhood, and I knew that it was impossible to go down this driveway, a winding driveway, without causing any damage, and then winding up a pole. It never even caused damage to the lawn or anything. So that, again, another miracle. Another one I can mention was when I went to a party with a bunch of friends. I was probably 21 years old, and I took several drinks of wine, whiskey. I probably mixed a bunch of different drinks. So I was really plastered. I remember going to the restroom and just praying about it, that I really didn't want to be drunk. And all of a sudden I felt this heat go from my head all the way through my body, through my feet. And within seconds, I was completely sober. And I knew then that this is more than just a coincidence, or more than just an accident of any kind. I knew something had happened. And I went back to the party completely sober, and I stayed sober the rest of the night. But I acted like a little bit of a fool, because I actually enjoyed it really, the attention I got. But anyway, that was another time. Then with all these things occurring in my early part of my life, I got to a point that I really had to know who Jesus was. I remember in a town of West Virginia, I was walking along the street. I was working for a company called Kresge's. And I was walking across the street thinking, is there a God? Is Jesus Christ really real? And I want to know him so well that I want to know him to the point that I would never backslide. I remember saying that. And the funny thing was, backslide is actually a word in the Bible. It's actually used in the Bible. And that prayer seemed to trigger off a bunch of events following it. Now that happened in 1974, and then 77 I ended up getting with a church, a non-denominational church. I started learning how to read the Bible, got in the book of John, and that was the beginning of my reading. Then in 1980, about that time, I found myself in a home that was actually once lived in, before I lived in it, by a fellow who was deeply into witchcraft, and but I didn't know at the time. He had gave me the key and so forth of the home, and I got in there, and sure enough, things started occurring. It was very soon after getting in the home that I started having nightmares, and he already moved out, of course. I was in this home all alone, a small home. It's just a 1-bedroom, living room, laundry, had an attached garage. But very, very nice, though. The rent was very cheap. It was like maybe $100 a month, give you an idea. That was, of course, it was back in 1980, but it wasn't much. The landlords actually lived across the street. But anyway, at the time, there were all kinds of nightmares. There were things going on in the home where a TV would go on by itself without even me touching it. Back then, we didn't have remote controls, but obviously I didn't need it. It would go on anyway in the middle of the night, and then I'd go back to bed. But then the day that something really occurred was when my brother came over there. My brother David, he was getting married, and I owed him some money. And he came into the house, and he said the smell of that home was, he said it was unbelievably bad. It was so bad that he couldn't take it. He had to leave. And I couldn't smell a thing. But he stayed there. We opened up the back window. I believe we opened up the back door in the laundry room, and he quickly took off. He couldn't take the smell. I think I paid him whatever money I owed him. I guess he was going to use it towards the wedding. He was getting married the following week. But it was that night. I went to bed early that night at about, I remember tossing and turning throughout the night until about midnight. And then when I found myself on the opposite side of the bed, the opposite of the pillows. I got up again, got back in the pillows, and I remember seeing all kinds of blankets thrown away from the bed. And I knew it was much further than what I would have thrown them. So I knew something was unusual was occurring, but I was so tired. Went back in my pillows again, and at 3 o'clock in the morning, exactly 3 o'clock, I remember seeing the clock. I found myself with my legs and just my arms crossed, and I had just a blanket maybe over me, and I felt someone touching me on the leg with like a finger, and hitting me on the leg. And then all of a sudden, a wind was blowing in my face. And I knew all this was unnatural. And I quickly said, God, get this thing out of my house in the name of Jesus Christ. I could barely get it out, but I did. I got it out. And as soon as I got it out, the whatever it was holding me back, because I was in this locked position, I was let go. And I was able to get off the bed. And I was in shock. And I knew right away there was some kind of demon. I was in the home and had... It locked me up and blowing wind in my face and hitting me on my leg. I was in shock anyway. I got in the living room and I kept going around in circles. I remember I was going around thinking, what am I going to do next? I didn't want to go back to bed. And anyway, there's much more to that story. But for many years I did have nightmares and so forth, and that never went away. But there were things going on at work that were very bad. It was a company called Campbell Soup. I was with them in Napoleon, Ohio, is where it occurred. And I remember going back to work the very next day, thinking that I really needed to see someone to help me out with this house. I didn't know quite what to do, but I did meet a fellow who was a pastor at one time, and his name was John Miller, and he said he would help me out with the home. He would do an exorcism, and that, believe me, it did help. But as I stayed in the house, I guess even then I stayed in the home for probably a good several months anyway. And towards the end of my time with Campbell Soup, there was a QC, a quality control lady, came up into my. I guess first of all I was walking towards my office, thinking that I had seen so much with what occurred that night, with all the various nightmares, with the TVs and everything else, that I knew that if anyone would point a gun to my head and ask me to deny the name of Jesus Christ, I'd have to tell them, shoot me. I mean, I couldn't deny his name. I knew he existed. I knew he was real. And I knew he was the one who helped me out with all the demonics that was going on. And I got to my office, I sat down, and shortly after that, that's when that woman came in, a woman of the quality control lady. She came in and says, John, she pointed right to me and with no expression, she says, John, if I point a gun to your head, would you deny the name of Jesus Christ? And I said, of course not. I remember pushing back the chair and saying, no, you have to shoot me. There's no way would I deny the name of Jesus. I've seen too much. And then she quickly turned around and went out the door, and soon she was gone. She was just gone. And I knew then there's again more to the story that I had at the time. I couldn't put all the pieces together yet, but I left Campbell Soup and I moved on to other companies. Years went by, and I remember my I guess it was now like 1992. Good 12 years later or whatever, and my dad was dying of cancer, and I went to Pittsburgh. It's where I'm originally from. And I was near the bedside, and I know my mother was talking to him, telling him that he was a great husband and so forth. And all of us got to college, even me, even though my health wasn't the best, but even I got in and graduated. And as she was saying it, though, I was looking at my dad's eyes. And he was had a strong, deep concern that something was about to happen. Like he was like he knew his judgment was going to come very, very soon. And I remember as I saw that, I knew there was something more to it. I didn't quite unsure exactly what was going on, but I knew I could see it in his eyes that there was some real deep concern. And he was trying to show, I guess, he was trying to show his wife, my mother, that of this concern. Because he couldn't speak much. He could say very, very little. And anyway, the priest came in. We were from a Catholic family, so the priest came into the room, and he was going to give the last rites, I believe. And I had no interest in that. I figured I'd get up and leave the room. But as I was leaving the room, my dad wasn't looking at the priest. He was looking at me. And I something told me to turn back and look back to my dad. And he was up on his hands off of his pillow, sitting in a sitting position off of the bed. And he screamed out, "John, pray for me!" And then went back on his pillow again. And at that time, I couldn't understand why he would say that to me. I come from a big family, and he, believe me, I was not the favored one in the family. I was a sickly one. I actually got better, but he never realized how better I got. But he never had any respect for me. He never really thought I would ever become anything. And for him to say that, it was completely out of the paradigm. He was it shocked me. I remember going to the living room, asking myself, why did he say that? Why? I couldn't understand it. And then I kept thinking that for probably a good 20 years. I never quite understood it. And then about 20 years later, I found myself in Michigan. I was working for probably EDS, a company called EDS, or maybe even Ford Motors at the time. It must have been EDS at the time, EDS. Which is electronic data systems. And but I was going to a church, a big church out here in Michigan, and in the church they had this church service that was talking about this one verse, and the verse is Luke 10:17-20. That was when Jesus Christ was sent out about 70 or so disciples to the various different towns, probably surrounding Jerusalem. And he told the people very clearly, he told his disciples, go out to the areas that were strictly Jews, don't go to the Samaritans, don't go to the Gentiles, strictly the Jews, and let them know that the kingdom could be here. The kingdom is being that he's here, he is the Messiah, that the kingdom could be here, that if they accept it. So anyway, the 70 disciples go out, and probably about a month later they come back, and they join up with Jesus again. They're just happy. They're just joyful with Jesus. Like, oh, you won't believe this. You won't believe this. We had demons submit to us in your name. And that's when Jesus says, well, I've given you my name to take away the scorpions, the snakes, and anything that's evil. But he said, don't be joyful about that. Be joyful now that you're in the citizenship of heaven, basically. You're saying that you're now a citizen of heaven. And for many, many years, people have thought, well, what that meant was you're part of the Lamb's Book of Life. But, the strange thing was, if you understand my testimonial, I was actually a born-again Christian back in 1977. I didn't say that, but when I joined that church in 1977, I actually became born again. Because I started reading the Bible and so forth, and actually got rebaptized. Not that it's necessary, but I got baptized and accepted Jesus Christ and so forth. And this was back in 1977. So this is many years later. This is like in 1980. Oh no, it was actually 1980 is when I had the demonic thing that occurred at the home, and then 1992 was when my dad said, "God, John, pray for me." But it was even 20 years beyond that, like 2000, was it 2000 something? That I saw that verse, so I knew, that, well, being that I was subjected to demons just the same as the apostles were, that it was after I had already become born again. And that, of course, I think it was 1980 that happened. And so I too must be in something that is a little bit different than what the Lamb's Book of Life. I'm in Lamb's Book of Life, but I must be in something else as well. So I just want to bring that out. My credibility of what I'm saying is extremely valid. And for anyone who thinks there's not a pre-tribulation is not really completely doesn't understand Jesus, doesn't understand God, because God even went further with me. That was just the beginning of my understanding. And then I guess it was about 2012. Yeah, it was 2012 that I had a vision of actually seeing Jesus. I was sitting on in the vision. I saw myself sitting on a chair and just on the right hand side of me, Jesus was looking at 5 people opposite of him. He was looking at me, and but in the vision, when I saw Jesus, I knew exactly who he was. He looked like the guy. He looked like the man in the shroud. If you go to the Shroud of Turin, and you see the one face, it's the one vision, or the one picture where Jesus is shaded on half of his face. That's how I saw him. It's exactly how I saw him. Because he wasn't looking at me. He was looking straight ahead. But I went up to him and I said, "Are you Melchizedek?" And he says, "Yes." And then quickly I found myself, bowing right at his knees and so forth. And I remember not looking up. I just looked straight ahead, and I saw his robe. His robe was like, neatly like waved, I can't describe it, but very nice and neat. But I remember bowing before him and feeling the power coming off his robe. And that to me was fascinating. But I wasn't there, of course, too long. It was only maybe a few seconds of bowing before him, and then the vision was over. And that happened on January 1st, 2000. Yeah, that happened January 1st, 2013. So that's when that occurred. It was New Year's Day. And then on about maybe a year later, September 25th of 2014, it was Rosh Hashanah. And my daughter came. I remember my daughter coming home and saying, "It's John, Dad, it's Rosh Hashanah, and it's New Year's for the Jews." And so I said, "Yeah, that's true. It's New Year's for the Jews." And we all, my wife, my daughter, and myself, all watching TV that same evening, and we turned on the TV program. There was a program with Les Feldick, and he was talking about that Melchizedek was indeed Jesus Christ, and he proved it. He proved it in all the scriptures. And what I learned out of that was that this was New Year's for the Gentiles, New Year's for the Jews. I had seen Jesus on New Year's of the Gentiles, and got it confirmed that he was indeed Melchizedek. But what really confirmed is that I actually did see him. It was proof that I did see Jesus, and that's what the whole thing. I could have never made that up. They just can't make something like that up. It just happened. Since then, as I said earlier, I've had various different dreams of the apocalypse and the earthquake and the tsunami, and I think about Jesus every single day. Matter of fact, there was one other point I want to bring out, is that when I did see Jesus, I didn't feel any love, okay? And if you look at a lot of the testimonials, they see Jesus in the glory and they felt the love, and I didn't feel love at the time, okay? And I prayed about it. About a couple months after, maybe a month or 2 months after the incident of the New Year's Day of what do you call it, the Rosh Hashanah, I got like a feeling of love. I woke up feeling a strong sense of love that surrounded me, and so God even gave me the feeling of love. I actually felt it, and it is extremely powerful. It was so powerful. It woke me up. I was sleeping at 4 o'clock. It was about 4 o'clock in the morning, and it actually was so powerful that it actually woke me up, and I felt this love. And I knew right away, my mind detected it immediately, love. And it was very, very strong. So anyone who says that they felt love at the time of seeing Jesus, believe them. They did feel it. I only felt it for seconds, but they must have felt it. Someone must have felt it for much longer than I did. And so, yeah, you do feel a sense of love. You have a love that only, you feel that you think that Jesus is only loving you. That's the feeling. And so it's going to be amazing when we get to heaven. But I do want to say to everybody that the way to get there is only one way, and that's through Jesus. He is the way, the truth, and life. John 14:6. And Romans 10:9, I always loved Romans 10:9 because it clearly indicates that just if you believe in your heart, say with your mouth that Jesus died for you, he was buried and rose again the third day, you're saved. Another verse I'll mention is Corinthians 15, verse 1-4. But all of Corinthians 15 is unbelievable. I mean, just that whole chapter of Corinthians is amazing. I can tell you so much about that chapter. But what's nice about the very first few verses is it clearly indicates what the gospel is. The gospel is that Jesus died for you, he was buried, and he rose again. That is the gospel. That's good news. That's the good news. And once you believe it, you become a new creation in him, and you're born again because you're baptized in the Spirit. You're baptized in the Spirit. That's the importance. So I just want to present that to everybody. Again, just keep your lanterns high, keep your lanterns well lit. It's going to happen. My vision when I felt the droplets of water on my arms, that only tells me one thing: that there's got to be some kind of rain or tsunami or something's going to happen. So when you see a lot of rain or tsunami or an earthquake, you know it's only moments later. It's just a matter of moments. Could it be 2018? Definitely could be. So keep your lanterns high, and God bless. Thanks. Bye-bye.